All right, everybody, man. Y'all know what time it is. Y'all know what day it is. It's Wednesday, hump day. So that means it's another edition of SWAC Talk, the show where we cover the SWAC inside and out. Of course, as usual, I am your tour guide, C. Wells. Going to take you around the SWAC again. Today, we're going to talk a little hypothetical conference expansion. Like I said, there's nothing really on the horizon for the near future, but, there's been some dominoes falling in other areas of FCS football, so I figured, now would be a good time to talk about this. We are kind of in the doldrums of spring. Of course, we have baseball and softball going on. Spring football is going on, but nothing pressing. So I wanted to go ahead and chop it up on this for a few minutes. Not going to be a crazy show. Just going to be some thoughts I have, good and bad, and how I feel ultimately about if the league had chose to go the route of expanding. So, with all that being said, man, go ahead and check out the socials. Facebook is Swag Talk, Instagram is Swag Talk, Twitter, Swag Talk 76, email swagtalk76 at gmail.com. So, go ahead and check all those out. And since you're here, if you haven't done so already, won't you please subscribe to the channel? If you have done so already, man, thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate it. If not, then go ahead and hit that button and subscribe. Also, hit that bell to be alerted to any content that I upload. Hit that notification bell, like the videos, and share them. And feel free to comment and let me know how you feel about the league expanding. Who you think they should join. If you think anybody should join, if you think they shouldn't, whatever. Just let me know how you feel about conference expansion. So, with all that being said, man, we're gonna go ahead and start it off with the team who I feel like is the elephant in the room when it comes to SWAC expansion, and that's Tennessee State. Obviously, there's a football program that a lot of people feel like is a natural fit to the league. They have, rivalries with a lot of SWAC schools. They have a lot of familiarity with SWAC schools. And if you know anything about their football attendance this past year, it was abysmal. Because a lot of people just don't turn out for Ohio Valley games, even though they've been in that conference since the '80s. So, there's not really that connection with them and those programs in that league. So they don't really, other than like homecoming, or if they have the John Merritt Classic or something like that, they don't really draw that well at home. So getting SWAC schools to come to your stadium all year, I think could help boost your attendance if you're on that plus side. Obviously, there's a lot of teams that they've played over the years. Southern Heritage Classic with Jackson State, that game is not going to exist anymore. As far as at least JSU and TSU are concerned, that can maybe change in the near future. Who knows? They had a little get together with Alabama A&M. They had a rivalry with FAMU. They played Southern multiple years. They played Grambling. So that's already five schools in the league out of 12 that they have a legit connection to. Um, so there's a lot of history between a lot of those schools. They played Pine Bluff recently. So and I think they're playing Bethune Cookman this year, I believe, or maybe in the upcoming season. But they have that connection with these teams, so that familiarity could help boost attendance. In all sports, basketball, football, could definitely help. But like I said, if the Ohio Valley Conference was to split apart, because the reason why I did this video in the first place was because the news about Murray State leaving Ohio Valley Conference to go to the Missouri Valley Conference leaves them really, I think, with like 5 football playing schools. You need 6 for AQ. They are adding a school called Lindenwood. They're moving up from Division II, but they will have I think it's a 4-year transition from D2 to D1. So it'll be a while before they can compete for championships, but they will satisfy that 6 conference member number. So that league is, not really the most stable. They've been looking for scheduling alliances and things like that. So if this league was to split apart, um, Tennessee State would be looking for a home. Obviously, the SWAC is a place that a lot of people see them going. That doesn't necessarily mean that's the only place they go. They could go to the MEAC, or they can go to one of the other FCS conferences if any of those are still in existence whenever this situation takes place, because conferences are kind of shaping back and forth. as we go, as we go through the days and months of this calendar year, these leagues are changing because the FBS is having some changes with some conferences, and that they reaching down, and teams are moving up. So there's a lot of motion, which keeps people looking for um, lifeboats. So some of these leagues are sinking ships, and maybe somebody will be willing to jump. If you're a person who wants Tennessee State to join, then you really want the Ohio Valley to really start to crumble. And maybe this will be the one time that the SWAC calls and asks TSU, are they up? And they say yeah, and they hook up. But at this point, there's neither here nor there. This, like I said, this is purely hypothetical. I just wanted to kind of throw some stuff out there and see what sticks. Tennessee State offers 15 sports, 8 women's sports, and 7 men's sports. They do not offer baseball, which to me is a big thing. SWAC baseball to me is probably one of the better sports in the league. So offering that leaves you one member short on that. And that also, as a whole, leaves you at 13 teams, which means if you were to add them, you would probably need to add somebody else. Now, you could probably rock with 13. I'm not a fan of odd numbers, but you can probably rock with 13 until something else better comes along. But for the sake of what I'm discussing, we are assuming that they would want to add another one and go to 14. But if you were to stay at 13, then you could either have 7 teams in the East and 6 in the West, or 7 in the East, 7 in the West, and 6 in the East. So it really, in terms of football, so that doesn't really change a lot. It only really would change the non-divisional matchups. And I have a scenario that I'm going to throw out there as we get a little bit further about football scheduling and everything. Basketball, you're going to end up with a more unbalanced schedule. You won't play everybody twice. You play everybody pretty much, once, and certain teams twice, and, keep it at an 18-game schedule, and that you have to find a way to make that work. But that's our first domino. If anything in the SWAC is expansion related, Tennessee State's name always comes up, and obviously I feel like that was the best place to start with this situation. The next team that I think a lot of people may throw out there is South Carolina State. They're a MEAC team. The MEAC is not the most stable league right now. They could be looking for somewhere else to go. I mean, obviously they have familiarity with FAMU and Bethune-Cookman being conference mates, and they've played Alabama A&M recently, Alabama State, JSU. They played Southern in 2017. They have some matchups with these teams, with other SWAC teams, and there's a familiarity there. Obviously that gives your easternmost teams another member that's at least a little bit closer. Now it does stretch the league a little bit further apart, but that's something that would probably have to be revisited when you look at your non-revenue type sports. Maybe you go to a divisional aspect in some of those to cut down the travel, and you could probably be good from there. I don't think South Carolina State's a horrible fit. I think they fit fairly well. Like I said, they have a familiarity. They have had success in football. They've had some success in basketball, not a lot, but they've been a program that's been consistent, especially in football. But they're a team that you can add and not really have to do too much more with them. You plug and play, and then that would allow you to keep your 7-team divisions, and you can slide a Eastern team west and add Tennessee State and South Carolina State to the East division, and then boom, you are ready to roll. So that that's one of the things that is pretty cut and dry, pretty straightforward. Like I said, it's just to me the biggest issue with that would be travel. just distance for your westernmost teams. But you don't have to make that trip every year. You can do like in basketball. Maybe this year, you know, you go to South Carolina State in basketball, and then next year they come to you. You only play them once, so that you don't have to have either team traveling back and forth more than once. So I think that can help. And obviously the way the SWAC does their basketball with travel partners, you pair them up with Tennessee State, and that can probably help alleviate some things. But I think those are probably the two teams that I would say are the most commonly talked about. South Carolina State offers they offer obviously 14 teams. That's pretty much what you have to offer as a minimum for FCS. They also don't play baseball, so that's a member who would be short another baseball team, but that would leave you with your 12 that you already have. May not be that big of a deal. Maybe you can convince them to add a baseball program. I mean, obviously that takes into account money, and all of these moves are pretty much dependent on money in real world circumstances. But it's something that if need be, that can be visited, when the decisions were made. So those are the first two teams that I feel like are probably as close to a no-brainer, as you can get. Two teams that I've seen a lot of people mention whenever the SWAC talks about expansion. One of the other avenues that people talk about when they talk about expansion is going down to D2 and picking up some teams, and that leads me to the SIAC, which is probably the closest Division II HBCU conference to the SWAC. It's not fully in the SWAC footprint, but it's pretty adjacent. So this is a league that obviously is a Division II league, which means that any team that decides to make that move has to meet some requirements first. They have to be able to pay the $1.7 million entrance fee to Division I from Division II. Usually the leagues will have a fee, but you can't move up to another level without a conference invite. So I figure if you get an invite from the SWAC, they're going to waive that fee. So you probably won't have to pay that, but you have to pay that 1.7 off rip. That's just, the first thing you got to do before you even make any type of move. So you have to do that. You have to offer at least 14 sports. Has to be 8 women's sports and 6 men's sports, or 7 and 7. You can't offer 8 men's sports and 6 women's sports. Title IX dictates that you need to have at least even or more women's sports than men's sports in that area. So it has to either be 8 women's sports and 6 men's sports, or 7 men's sports, 7 women's sports. And you have to have a conference invite, and I think it's like a 3 or 4 year transition where you're not eligible to go to any postseason events in Division I. That goes for your basketball tournaments, your baseball tournament, any football postseason. So, that also gives you an opportunity to get your ducks in a row. And I think that rule really stemmed from a lot of teams moving up who at the time weren't really ready for that jump. And, they had to play catch up right away. So that allows you to cycle in, get your scholarships up, and get yourself ready. You have to offer a maximum of 63 scholarships in FCS. I want to say the minimum is 36, but it's somewhere in that range. So those are the things that you have to do off top before you even get close to being a full-time Division I member. So I'm not gonna say that any of these schools are able to do that at this point. That's why I said this is something that can probably happen years down the line. But these are some teams who I would say would be the team that people probably would be aware of, I think would join if they were asked. I mean, if I had to say that there was a team or teams in this conference that probably were ready right now, at least in some form, I would say Albany State and Fort Valley State. I think their athletic departments are probably two of the better athletic departments in the conference. They both play in pretty decent sized football stadiums. Albany State plays in an 11,000 seat stadium, and Fort Valley plays in a 10,000 seat stadium. They are both obviously in Georgia, so that's not that, that doesn't stretch the footprint that much. So if you would add like a Tennessee State and this in one of those schools, then I think you would be okay. Or South Carolina State and one of these schools, they could be a good bridge between uh, South Carolina State and the rest of the league. Those are probably the two that I think that I would look at. I think they both offer 10 or 11 sports, so they would have to add some more sports. But that's a bridge that you cross when you really get to it. I just want to kind of throw out some things and just go from there. Like I said, this is not scientific. It's just something popped in my head one day. Other than that, I would say I kind of like Miles, but they don't have they don't have a large facility in any sport, but they are building their athletic department. They have a solid football team, solid basketball team. I really like this doesn't really have anything to do with the actual joining the league, but I like that they are increasing their social media presence, which is something that I'm pushing for the rest of the league to jump on a board. But this is they fall already in the SWAC footprint, so they wouldn't really add anything as far as a new market. They're right outside of Birmingham, basically in Birmingham, depending on how you look at it. So they that area is already SWAC country because you're Alabama A&M, Alabama State. They play in Birmingham. You have SWAC office in Birmingham, so the SWAC is already entrenched there. So that may not be something that really adds anything to the league as far as footprint and markets, but that does add a team who can with some time be able to at least be a vital member. A lot of people have talked about Tuskegee, but I've heard Tuskegee doesn't really have the money or really the want to make that move. So I wouldn't really concern myself with them too much. And they are similar to what I said about Miles. They're already in Alabama, so they don't really add anything new if that's what you're looking for. Other than that, I would say, Kentucky State. That's a far-fetched one, but I know that name that came up for the MEAC when the MEAC was rumored to add some members. So obviously they have some really growing to do. They play in a 5,000 seat football stadium and a 27,000 seat basketball, 2,700 seat basketball arena. So they don't really have the facilities, the money. It may not be there, but that's a program that obviously if their name came up for that, then their name probably would come up for this, in this hypothetical world. And other than that, Clark Atlanta, I don't know, monetarily where they sit at, but they obviously would give you Atlanta, which definitely helps, because that's the area that the SWAC loves. So, that would entrench you in that area, but I don't think they are ready for that at this point in time. But they play in a 6,000 seat football stadium and a 3,500 seat basketball arena. Other than that, I don't know the logistics of how a Morehouse move would work, because you have to offer women's sports, and Spelman doesn't play sports, so I don't know if you can find, or the NCAA will make some kind of I don't know what kind of agreement they have in D2. I don't know if they could transfer over to D1. So that's a school that would be great to add, but I don't know about the logistics of that, so I'm not really gonna go crazy over that. A name that I've seen also people talk about is Langston, and Langston is an NAIA school in Oklahoma, so that stretches you really west, because all our Texas schools are in southeast Texas, I guess you could say. That stretches you west, so they are NAIA. They only offer 7 sports, so they will have to add 7 sports just to be eligible to join. I don't know if they have the money for that. I would like to see them kind of make a move up division by division before that became somebody that I would think about joining. But I've seen their name come up a lot, So I just kind of wanted to throw them out there and just give a couple of thoughts on that. Now, I'm gonna kind of go outside the box a little bit on these next ones, and like I said, this is obviously in this world that I'm hypothetically in. Um, I think that you kind of have to, if you're looking to expand your league, and some of these other conferences are not as stable as you are, you may be a beacon of light to somebody else, and that leads me to a couple. What did I just hit? That leads you to a couple PWI conferences. Now I know how a lot of people feel about that. I'm not saying that this should happen, but I'm just saying that if somebody was looking and they want to legit be a part of this, then I think that you take it into account. I mean, the CIAA has Chowan, which is a PWI in their league, so it's not unprecedented. I'm not saying that it should happen. I'm not even saying that it would happen. I'm just giving out hypothetical scenarios. But the OVC is on its way out. I think it's on life support. I don't know how much longer it has. There's not a lot of schools that as far as location that I feel would even fit. There's only two other schools in Tennessee that would at least be locationally good, and that's Tennessee Tech and UT Martin. I don't know if either of those schools would join. And I'm not saying that you go out and knock on their door and ask them. I'm just saying, if somebody expressed interest at some point because they got nowhere else to go, which I think sounds kind of bad, but you know what I'm saying. That would be, a couple of schools I would look at. Morehead State in Kentucky, they play in the Pioneer League. They don't play in the OVC in football, but they don't. So that would be maybe a team who if they get their scholarships in order, maybe they would be interested. But other than that, everything else is kind of in Missouri and Illinois. That stretches the footprint a little bit too much for me, especially for schools that don't really have anything necessarily in common with us. So, like I said again, I'm not saying that this is going to happen. I'm not saying that I want it to happen. I'm just making some examples. And the other league I thought about, and mainly because this league is also not doing the best, is the Southland. They're losing Incarnate Word. They're moving out of the league, so that leaves them, with minimal teams. They're adding Texas A&M Commerce, but they have not satisfied the requirements to make that move. So I don't know if they'll be able to make it or not. But they are sitting there. At some point, they may not exist anymore. The league is directly in the SWAC footprint. The Louisiana Texas League. The Texas schools that would be left, I don't really see as anything that would be a vital fit. But if one of the Louisiana schools was to reach out, I would answer the phone at least. McNeese, Nichols, Northwestern State, Southeastern, any of those are just teams that if their league imploded and they was like, man, we just gonna make this call and see what happens. I would pick up, but I'm not saying that you need to run out and get these guys or they're gonna run out to you. We are okay, without that move. But I'm just saying. But sticking with this expansion, if the league was to expand to, let's say, 14 teams, when it comes to football, I would go with an 8-game schedule. That gives you 6 divisional opponents and 2 non-divisional opponents. Now, what I would do was, instead of keeping one team as your permanent rival, I would have those 2 non-divisional games rotate every couple of years. You get a home game against them and a road game. Then maybe you rotate somebody else off and on. To kind of keep it so you're not going multiple years without playing people. Some conferences, especially some of the FBS conferences, their teams go, 5, 6, 7, 8 years without playing. Some teams from the other division. So I wouldn't really want the gap to be that big, so maybe, 2 or 3 years would be a good window. But, to me, that would be how I would have the football. Basketball, I would kind of stick to what it is now. You don't play everybody twice. You play everybody once, and then you play certain teams twice. Keep it at an 18 game schedule, maybe 20, and I think you're good there. Baseball, it would be still the same. All all conference series against your divisional opponents, and then you go from there. Um, Obviously, with some of these teams not having baseball, then that doesn't change baseball scheduling. But that's something that could be addressed when it comes around, whenever that was to happen. Now that leads me to my final point, which is probably where I stand, and that's no expansion. Man, I'm not really interested in adding nobody. I'm not really interested in nobody coming through like the song said, no new friends. So I'm not really looking for nobody to come through and holler. But um, I'm not adverse to it. Like I wouldn't be like running out with pitchforks and picket signs about it happening, but it has to be the right fit. It has to be somebody that A, understands the culture of the league, B, brings something of value to the league, and C, wants to be here. That probably should be number one. Like Big say, this rule should be number one to me. That should be probably be number one to me because you need to want to be here. I don't necessarily want my league to be a life route for somebody just because their league is dying and they just need somebody to go until something else comes along in a year or two. The SWAC has been a very stable league. They have been an 18 league up until 1997, and then they have been a 10-team league up until 2020. So this league has not had a lot of member changes when a lot of other conferences have had multiple teams leave, multiple teams join. This is probably one of the most stable leagues, probably outside of the Ivy League, that has not, really added or lost anybody. So I would love to keep that stability. Like I said, I don't want to stretch the league footprint too much, and I don't want to add somebody just because we need to add somebody because we don't necessarily need to do anything. We are building the brand that we have is growing, and everything with the SWAC is operating really well right now. So you don't need to put somebody in here just to put anybody in here. You don't really want a situation like a Morris Brown situation where the school really wasn't ready to move, but they still wanted to move, and you were trying to get them in and make arrangements for them, and then it didn't happen. So that's where I stand. I'm really team no expansion, but if it was to happen, then it is what it is. I just wanted to run through the scenarios that I think could happen at some point in a alternate universe or whatever. But I don't really see the SWAC expanding, so I don't really waste a lot of sleep on that. But I just wanted to pop in, man, and share my thoughts on that. Let me know how you feel. If you think the league should expand, if you think they shouldn't, if you think they should, who should they add, and how things will work out. So with that being said, man, I'm about to hop on up out of here. Remember, tomorrow, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, SWAC Smoke coming at you. Sunday, SWAC Talk coming back again. Gonna talk about the spring games that take place. Texas Southern spring game Friday, I think it's 6 p.m. Southern spring game is Saturday at 3 p.m. FAMU spring game is Saturday, also at 2 p.m. But I think that's 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, I believe. Alcorn 2 p.m. spring game Saturday, and Valley spring game 11 a.m. also on Saturday. So there's a gang of spring games this weekend. So gonna try to talk about as many of them as I can. Of course, I will be at Southern spring game, so holler at me if you see me. But with that being said, man, I'm your boy C Wells, the tour guide. Man, I'm gonna stop this bus. Y'all can hop on off. Enjoy the rest of y'all hump day, and I'm gonna catch y'all tomorrow for another edition of SWAC Smoke. And we out. Peace.